here at Fork and Path, and today I'm sharing with you our top 8 tips for how to be a respectful traveler and why you should care about being a respectful traveler. This is a great video for any first-time travelers out there, or if you just want to make sure that you're being the best traveler that you can be. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and make sure you hit the bell to get alerted every time we have a new video. For our first tip, we're going to talk about inappropriate places and times to be taking photos. An example of an inappropriate picture taken at an inappropriate place would be a duck face selfie at a Holocaust memorial. Really any type of memorial. Actually, really just don't take any duck face selfies. But getting back to the point, it's kind of rude to make light of any type of memorial or thing like that. I'm not saying don't take pictures of memorials, not by any stretch of the means at all. I'm just saying be aware of what pose you're taking in that picture. Going along with this also, you don't want to be climbing all over any type of memorial to get the perfect Instagram shot. It's really rude to whoever the memorial is honoring, and it will also just make you look very disrespectful when you're traveling. Another example of an inappropriate time and place to be taking a picture would be if you wanted to get a picture in the middle of a street during rush hour. Not very nice for you to be holding up traffic, and you're probably going to get run over and hurt. If you want to get a picture in an area that is a high traffic or a high, whether it be foot traffic or car traffic area, make sure you go first thing in the morning when the sun rises and before anybody is really woken up and started going to work. Not only will it be easier for you to get your picture, safer for you to get your picture, and more respectful to get your picture, you'll also have perfect lighting. Our second tip for being a respectful traveler is posing appropriately in pictures. I have the perfect story for this. While we were in Greece, we were at a museum and there was a statue of a naked man there, and a group of female travelers were pretending to lick a very specific part of that statue, which was very disrespectful to the museum, and it was extremely disrespectful to all of the parents who were there with their very small children. And I can only imagine there were quite a few very uncomfortable conversations later that day. Anyway, these girls were eventually kicked out, which also kind of sucked for them because it was a paid museum, so they lost out on their museum ticket and experience. This also brings us to the point of make sure you have permission to take pictures. So usually in museums, they'll very clearly state if you can take a picture and if you can use a flash, everything like that. But this also applies to people, and especially if you see someone who's dressed up in traditional garb, you want to make sure you have their permission to take a picture, because oftentimes these people will charge you a fee for taking a picture of them. So you want to make sure you're not destroying their livelihood, because that's disrespectful. Our third tip is about researching restaurant customs before you go somewhere. We always make sure to do a lot of research, probably because we eat at a lot of restaurants, but we want to make sure we know what we're doing, and sort of having that know-how is part of being respectful. So some things you'll want to find out are, do you need to tip? If so, how much do you need to tip? Do you need to ask for your bill, or will they bring you your bill? Funny story, the first day Chris and I were in London, we had no idea that we were supposed to ask for our bill, so we spent almost 3 hours at a restaurant waiting for our server to bring the bill. We finally got it worked out, but it's just one of those things that's kind of disrespectful not to know the customs of the place you're going to. In Romania, it's considered respectful to tell your waiter or waitress if you're going to be paying with cash or a card, so they know if they need to bring a card reader to your table. Our fourth tip is making sure you learn a little bit of the language of the place you're going to before you go there. I am certainly not saying you need to be fluent. I'm just saying you should have a couple of phrases in your back pocket. Personally, I would recommend hello, thank you, do you speak English, or whatever language you speak, I don't understand, and help. I would also highly recommend that you download Google Translate. This app works offline, and it really can come in handy if you're having trouble communicating with someone who speaks a different language than you. I'd also recommend getting a Lonely Planet book for the area that you're going. They have a really great phrase section in all of their books, along with a pronunciation guide. Our fifth tip for being a respectful traveler is to make sure if you're hiking or doing anything out in nature that you're being respectful and staying on trails. Going off trail can be really detrimental to the ecosystem, and it can also cause erosion in trails, which you definitely don't want to do. I was actually really surprised when we were in Iceland. We saw so many people wandering around off trail despite repeated warnings from locals about how fragile the ecosystem was and how much tourists have been destroying part of their ecosystem because they were just going everywhere. Make sure you're respecting the area that you're in, the environment that you're in, and the people who are giving you warnings. It's their home and you don't want to be the one messing it up. This also ties into don't do anything stupid and dangerous like climbing on rock formations or going over barriers. It's rude, it's unsafe, just stay behind the barrier. Our sixth tip for being a respectful traveler sort of follows that same vein, just indoors. Make sure you're not going into restricted areas or anything like that. I cannot tell you the number of times I've seen people try to get around a roped off area. An example of this was when we were in England. We did a tour of an estate and there were a lot of rooms in the house that were open to the public, but there were rooms that were reserved for the family. People were still trying to get into these rooms even though they were very clearly marked as reserved for the family. Now, this is something where I would just say, as a rule of thumb, think about it in reverse if that was happening to you. So if someone was touring your house and started going through rooms that you didn't want them to, it's a pretty big invasion of privacy, and that's very, very rude. Our seventh tip for making sure you're a respectful being a respectful traveler is to research food customs ahead of time. This is something a lot of people overlook, but there's some countries where it's considered rude to not clear your plate. This actually happened to Chris and I when we were in Romania. A lot of the restaurants we went to were very upset about how much food we left on our plate. So we would always make sure to ask for a box and bring the food with us, and then we would give it to a homeless person we saw on our way home. Or we would take it back to our hotel and have it as a snack later. Conversely, in other areas of the world, it's considered rude to clear your plate because that means the host didn't give you enough food. So you really just want to make sure you have an idea of the customs of the place that you're going to, just so you can make sure that you're being respectful. Our eighth and final tip is if you have any dietary restrictions or preferences, you learn how to communicate that in the language of the place you're going to. I actually have a lot of food allergies. So what I do is I will usually write out my food allergies on a note card or something like that in the language of the place we're going to, so then I can really easily explain to everybody what my allergies are. I have a lot of allergies, so it can be really hard to communicate that, but I have come into situations where I didn't have something like that on me and I ate something I was allergic to and it caused kind of a scene, and it's embarrassing for you and embarrassing for the people who served you that food. So to avoid this, just sort of have everything written out ahead of time. You can read it to your server or just give it to them. Problem solved. Now I know you may be thinking, but Sadie, I'm only ever going to be here once. What's the point of going out of my way to be respectful? A few things on that. First, don't think that way. It's not a good way to look at life. Part of the reason you should be respectful is just for your own safety. If you're being disrespectful and really being obvious, you're gonna stick out like a sore thumb and therefore be more of a target for travel-related crime like pickpocketing. You also want to make sure that you're leaving the area that you're in a good condition and a good situation for all of the travelers who want to go there after you. This includes making sure you're respecting the environment, to even making sure you're taking respectful pictures. For example, while I was in Greece, there was quite a few museums that you were no longer allowed to take pictures in because people had been taking such inappropriate pictures. That sucked. I would have really liked to get some pictures there, but I couldn't do it because travelers before me ruined it. Finally, I just think everybody in the world could stand to be a little bit more respectful towards each other. Thank you so much for watching. That's all we have for you today. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you like it, and make sure to comment below if you have any other recommendations on how to be a respectful traveler. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and definitely check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Fork and Path. Sláinte!